Maybe his battery died. I think that's what happened. Yeah.
Bro, you're disappointing me, bro. You can't keep using Croydon to make fun of the situation.
When your phone does that, what has happened to your phone?
No.
What
Yeah,
happened?
yeah, yeah.
What
Yeah,
happened?
yeah. Technical difficulties still. Technical difficulties.
Oh,
You get
jokes.
me? But don't
All
be
right.
putting it on the end. You get me? But we're back now.
All
Hopefully
right.
for the
CR.
next. I hope
CR all day.
yeah, we're there. All right, cool. What was you saying? Big up, big up. Thank you for your patience.
And that's right. It's love. Yeah. So, I mean, what I wanted to ask is, with your brothers, what was it that you were seeking from them?
You're going deeper. You're moving like my counselor today, bro.
What was it?
I
Because
love
you were
it.
looking up to them, but in that looking up to them, there was something that you wanted them to see also in you. What was it that you were seeking from them as your older brothers,
Yeah,
especially in that on the roads?
this is probably a longer conversation. I actually did a documentary with BBC a while back, but basically I think, and even as I discussed it, I think I found out different kind of answers to that answer. But I think ultimately,
Oh, hold on, you're covering the mic.
I think ultimately, if anyone has more than 3 siblings in their household, they will know the dynamics that happen. Being a Nigerian as well, I feel like the energy was high, and I feel there were so many episodes where individuals will have like have issues with another sibling. So there was a lot of sibling rivalry during my upbringing, and I think one of them was very heavy on with me and my brothers. So actually, I remember being quite young and not getting along with my older brothers, and being 4 years older than me, as I before I began to mature, I think I needed to like get used. I was always kind of fighting for their acceptance. Because obviously I was the younger sibling and they may have resented me as a younger child. And I feel like when I got older, we got closer and closer in age. But I think before we got to that point, there was always like trying to earn their kind of respect as a brother, as a man, without like just being seen as a younger sibling, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you think you ever achieved that?
Yeah, me and my brothers are good now. But I feel like the way I used to achieve it, the way I wanted to achieve it, actually just drew us further apart. You know, being on the streets, I just got deeper in. I remember my older brothers went uni, and that kind of just made me kind of just lean on my own. I remember just being 18, with kind of not as much confidence in my unit as a family, and I was always taught family first, and I think when that foundation kind of plateaued, I kind of just went further in, which was the irony of the whole situation. But yeah, man, it was a story in itself, man, for real. Heaven and hell.
What was your relationship like? What was your relationship like with your parents then, compared to how it is now?
Not that good.
I'm your counselor right now, so that's not gonna that answer won't suffice.
It wasn't that good, but it's good now, for real. Good now.
As a young man, because you grew up in Brixton, you had a house fire, you moved to Croydon. As a young black man in South London, running the streets, what do you think was going through your parents' minds?
They didn't understand, and that's another issue with, like, I think first generational diaspora. Like, we go, and I feel like we carry the perspective that we gain from they gain from their initial home, and it took them very, very long. I would say even in the past 5 years, maybe 3, that my parents, I believe, have like begin to gain the whole westernized society. You feel me? So back then they didn't understand. Like, it's funny, like, bro, it's funny, like, I've been on TV telling the world that I've been stabbed multiple times, but I never had that real conversation with my parents, so I don't really know how they feel. I remember one auntie came up to me and she was like, "You're making." Yeah, auntie came up to me and she was just like, she saw me on TV. She was just like, "Oh, like you're an actor." Like, she was like, "You're good at making things up," but she was genuinely just blinded by what she thought she knew of me. That she was just like, "Wow, that must not be your story. You're just telling fiction." She was like, "But why do you have to graphic it like that?" I was like, "No, because it's true." You know what I mean? And that's kind of, I feel like, an analogy of a lot of first generational migrants. Like, they just refuse to see like the pain and the trauma that their children may go through, and if they don't recognize it, they refuse to understand it. Still, that's my
Yeah. What would you then say to, as advice, what would you give to that first generation parent who has a daughter or a son in the mix of the streets, who's not really, coming from maybe Nigeria, Ghana? What would you give them as advice to either look out for or how
just
to handle?
talk to their kids, fam. Just
Talk
to
okay.
them. Just conversations, and create that safe space where you can start from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally, just starts from understanding them, and
Was that not, and you would say that wasn't done for you particularly?
No, not at all. But yeah, like moving forward, like conversation, like community and conversations, like that's so important. And I feel, even now that as an older man, I kind of serve that responsibility also to like communicate some things back to them, and my family and friends, so it all starts from a conversation to really understand them, I'm a businessman, bro. Like me and my partner set up, my co-partner, not romantic partner. Every time I say partner, it sounds like I call him BP, business partner. We set up our business 2 years ago, and throughout that whole aspect, we've learned that everything in life is an investment. The people we talk to, the people we connect with, the things we are learning and studying, everything's an investment. So the people I work with on a daily, it's always conversations that we need, because if I see them like an investment, it just sounds a bit insensitive, but I need to make sure they're well. So I must have a direct interest in their well-being so that we can fulfill the work that we've invested in together. So it's the same for your family, your kids, your children. Your family are your greatest investment. If you want them to be successful, if you want them to do well in life, you're going to need to sit down with them and internalize what they're going through so you can correctly and effectively manage what they go on to do. You know what I mean? I'm just getting shouted, it's in your grades. If the grades are good, bad, sit down and walk a man through why the grades are bad and try to make them understand that, okay, you're there to support that. I feel like that is the concept that I would really communicate to the people, older people. Them.
I love that. No, I love that. I think that is, communication is something that people talk about regularly in relationships. Communicate. But I think it is also comes hand in hand with understanding. Like someone might communicate, but you need someone who on the other end is willing to understand that is that person's thinking, theology, mindset. Not for you to automatically just try and change that, but take time to digest that and understand that. And I think with the stuff that you've been through and the young men I've come across, young men and women I've come across, one thing I've really seen is the psychology of the roads runs through their whole being. And it's so different to civilian life. Tell me about, for you, what was the psychology of that kind of life and that lifestyle and that road kind of mentality for you?
When walking in, or just a whole...
When you were in it, fully?
It was a clash of power, respect and pride, and a load of other things. But I feel like those are the main themes that I feel a young growing man and woman are experiencing. I feel like in your adolescent age, bro, you don't know who you are. So identity is a huge, like finding your identity is huge. Going into school, like going into secondary school, like I just remember it. I was saying it the other day to my brethren, was sitting down. And it's like 9 to 5, like sorry, 9 to 3, even 8 to 3. Like those hours of the day are so warped. That's how your identity is warped. You get me? Now it's social media. Now it's 24 hours, so it's crazy. But going
Yeah.
into school and just seeing so many people look what they dress, what they
Oh, you're covering the mic.
so much, like how you see all of them things is so interesting. Like and I feel, yeah, that identity really had me feel like yeah, I was learning myself, and I feel like I learned a lot of myself through the environment, which wasn't necessarily the right way. And so everything that environment was producing, that was then being manifest in my personality. So being angry, being being someone that wanted to distribute power, like, and make money, all of those things were being demanded from my environment. And the more I kind of leaned on my environment and not on my real personality, which I have to find ultimately in God, I'm always going to lose it. So yeah, I lost it deeper. I only found myself really in when I was like 20.
Damn, 20. Jeez. And I love what you said about how the more you lean into that environment, the further away from your real personality you are.
Yeah.
Did you see that in like your friends, where they will be one way in a particular circumstance, but then put them in the environment of the roads, they would change?
Yeah, man. Yeah, like yeah, because then you feel there's pressures that come with a certain environment, you know, like you have to be, when your identity is tested every single day, because we're in a world of opinion. We're in a free world where everyone has their own say. So you're going to go as soon as you wake up. As soon as you wake up, that's why I have to really just start my day in meditation and reflecting of who I am as a person. Because as soon as I get on my phone, as soon as I talk to someone, their reality is trying to like compromise my own. So even with the environment you're in, there are certain principles that are demanded from that environment. So if you're truly not that person, if you're truly not the person that's representing that description, then it's peak for you. And that's what happens when you're tested. You know, you test someone gangster and you see what actually comes out of them. And it's not, and now we call that, oh, he's fake, or he's not real. And those crushing words can now make someone feel there's something wrong with them. But ultimately, it's just that your identity is so unique that you need to find yourself, because you're trying to fit into a mold that isn't yours. You get me? And you have to play being real with yourself comes in, and that's the realest. You get me? So
That's beautiful, man. Tell me about what are the psychological effects of being stabbed then? Tell me, because that, when you see it in films, or when you see it you might see it in Top Boy, those type of things, it lessens the reality of the situation. But you, who's been a victim of it, tell me about what are the psychological effects that happen after being stabbed.
Yeah, so feels quite interesting talking about this. It's been a while since I touched this topic, but when I do, I usually describe the 3 scenarios. So I've been stabbed 5 times in 3 different situations. First time I was stabbed once, second time I was stabbed 3 times, and then third time I was stabbed once again. So, and they were all very interestingly different. You know, the first time I was actually stabbed was banter. Like, it was literally a friend of mine who had a knife out on the block. He thought he was trying to display his power. It was kind of like a dare, and then we ended up play fighting, and then he stabbed me in my arm, and it got quite serious, and then I started bleeding. And it's so, and why I always talk about that first scenario is because my first encounter with a knife was banter. It was laughter. It wasn't serious. And from that moment, I was desensitized. You know, for everyone that was there, that saw that, witnessed that, saw the fact of one individual stabbing another to be something comical at most. It was something, like not that deep. Even though my arm's bleeding, the girls on the block are patching me up. The police came to the block. They're like, what's going on? We said nothing. I went home that day. No one knew that I'd been stabbed. If I talked to my parent that day, perhaps they would have been able to coach me through the process of what happened today was not right. That wasn't human. But to me, a seed was sown, and it was like, oh no, like man gets stabbed every day. Like man got stabbed in Banner. And I think that kind of rolled onto, I was like 15 when that happened. And then I was stabbed again 3 times 17, which was more of a serious scenario where, I got into an altercation with a group of boys. I was with a group of boys. It went hectic, it went wrong. In the process, I got stabbed 3 times. But now my response to that situation was now it's innate to get a knife. You know what I mean? And that's partly connected to my past trauma experience 2 years ago of being stabbed on my block and feeling like, oh no, people just need that. So it was just innate for me to have it as well. I only understood this years after these situations, because that day I got stabbed 3 times. I never left my house without a knife again for the next 3 years or so. So trauma is a real thing, despite if it's been stabbed or if you've been beat up, whether you've just been in any sort of abusive or verbal abuse, like whatever kind of level of trauma, if they weren't dealt with. And so while we're on this topic, I remember that time when I was stabbed 3 times, twice in my back, once in my arm, sorry. Yeah, I remember that. And then I met I met a psychiatric doctor who came to my hospital bed the day I was hospitalized, innit? And this guy basically came to see my, just to see if I was okay. You get me? And it was so interesting because I was x-rayed, and out of all the 3 times I was stabbed, one of them was the most serious. So I remember, I came out of the x-ray and they were just like, that one of these, 2 of them are okay, but the one of them, if it was literally an inch to the right, it would have punctured your lung from behind. And I remember, like, when they told me that, they were so strategic about it. Like, they all came into my room and they were like, basically, they were basically saying you could have died, and they wanted me in that moment to kind of snap out of this life that you're in. But in that moment, I remember it like yesterday. All I went into was, I was so angry, bro. Like, I was just like, how dare someone try to steal my life? So it backfired on them. And one of the people in the room was this psychologist, which was basically trying to unveil the situation and telling me not to seek revenge and all of them things there. And he was an amazing person that I never valued at the time. I met him like 3 years later at a talk for BBC.
Wow.
And I was like, you actually tended to me, bro. And it was crazy because the nature of that conversation 3 years ago was about trauma, and it was all about dealing with trauma before it erupts. And I was saying we need more people like him, not just in the hospital, but in our homes, in our schools, in our churches, in our government. Everyone needs to have a level of psychological understanding in terms of dealing with trauma, dealing with the mind. And yeah, man, if he did his job, but I didn't want to hear it from him. He's a stranger. Like, leave me alone. You get me? But if I went home and I could have got that from my big brother, who knows? I might have not got stabbed the 5th time, and the story goes on, man. But yeah, man.
But after that, you did seek revenge, and so you've got the psychology of a victim. But now, I want you to tell me, what was the psychological effects of seeking revenge? Because there's some people that I've spoken to who an offense like that, because it really attacks their pride, revenge haunts them. There was one guy I met who came out of prison, and he said I'm patient. I'm a patient man, you know. I said, what do you mean? He goes, someone can do me wrong and I can sit in jail for 10 years. And I'll wait patiently for those 10 years. And when I come out, I will deal with it. And that just
Yeah.
showed me, wow, the psychological effects of that trauma has
Yeah.
triggered it and so much that revenge can't leave him. Tell me about what was the psychological effects for you in relation to revenge?
I thought about that event when I was stabbed 3 times for years.
Wow.
You know, a lot happened through that time. We found out who the guys were. We retaliated. You know, there was a lot. Like, without getting into details, like, to the point, as much as one could do to seek revenge, I felt I could have done, but nothing was fulfilling me. I was still angry. I was still angry. Like, bro, I'm in my brother's room right now, and as you're talking about this, it's really deep, because I used to stay in this room, and like, I'm looking at a part of the wall near the door, and there's holes in the wall. I used to have my knife. I used to punch the wall to work on my grip.
Wow. Oh my God.
That's how angry I was. I used to work on my grips, and it was so deep, because this was no one. I don't know if my mum knows. You know what I mean? And it's like, I was young, 17, just trying to work out how to respond, and through the lies of media, through the lies of my environment, through the lies of the people that I associated with in the ends, I thought the right way was to work on my grip. And now this is it. Who has the strongest voice in your ear? Who has the strongest voice to tell you what's right? Because above everything, the only thing that redeemed me at the end, that gave me the resolve, that gave me the victory that I needed, was forgiveness, bro. And it was mad, because if someone taught me forgiveness when I was that age, I probably wouldn't have damaged my wall, cuz it's so deep. It's so deep, man. It's so deep. I was just watching an Oprah Winfrey video this morning. Shout out Positive News, that released so much good content. And they were talking about this. She had to forgive her mum, the trauma. See, forgiveness isn't, looking at, like, addressing your past and saying what was done was right. It's not about saying it was done is okay. Sorry, it's not about looking at your past and saying, oh, what you gone through was okay. Like, so we've all gone through some twisted stuff, some things that we don't deserve. But forgiveness is for yourself. Forgiveness is telling yourself that you can be okay with it. It's not about looking at what they done, because that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to translate my wrath onto someone else.
Wow.
And that was never fulfilling. So, yeah, I just really want to make this a universal conversation and say, to whatever the kind of trauma is that one has gone through, it's kind of the ultimate piece that I came was like kind of addressing it myself and accepting it for myself. And, God helped me through that journey. And I hope everyone that's in this life can go through it too, man. Yeah, man.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's deep, because I think a lot of people can relate to that on a like you said, on a universal level, and it is often said constantly. Just forgive, just forgive. But even that, is a process. Even that takes time, and even that, is a journey. Why do you, let me actually going from that? You sold a lot. You sold drugs. And you trapped, you did country lines, selling it outside London, outside in the country. There is something I always see, and it always worries me, which is if I'm on Twitter, I'm scrolling, someone will say, they'll post a picture of their younger brother, or they'll post a picture of their younger sister, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, da-da-da is missing. If you see them, please get in contact. If you see them, please get in contact. Then like a week later or so, they'll post another tweet. don't worry, they've been found now, everything is cool. And I remember there was a friend of mine that happened to. It was his brother, and I think after he got back, explained the situation. Tell me about missing children and going country. Tell me that correlation. Now, it's not for every missing child, but for your experience in that drug world, what is that connection between missing children on these estates and going to sell drugs? What is happening?
So yeah, county lines. I guess for anyone that don't know what county lines is, you have domestic drug trafficking, and then you have like cross-county drug trafficking, where someone from London might, instead of selling drugs in London, they will go like 500 miles down. They'll go Peterborough, they'll go Birmingham, they'll go Manchester, they'll go all of these up north areas, wherever, and they would stay in someone's home, someone that is obviously a consumer of that drug, and pay them through that drug, and distribute more of those drugs from that house. So yeah, purely because people didn't want to sell from their personal accommodation or their location, which is funny because now I feel like it's switched on their head. Police are doing well with county lines now, but now there's more of a domestic problem currently again. But yeah, so to do that is quite it's a world of its own, to go to a strange land that you're not aware of. Predominantly, it could be predominantly a race that you're not from, so an area where it's full of white people, you're a black person, so you feel like there are potential risks that you don't want to put on yourself, and at that point you start to choose and handpick individuals who could fit under the restrictions of that situation. So yeah, man, that's where recruiting younger people, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, like individuals, and you're getting them to sit there because they can get arrested and they can just be like, I was forced to do it. That's what they're getting told. They're saying, just say that you're forced to do it and then you're out. Even though now these younger individuals are getting charged as well, so it's a lie. So yeah, like that's the process. Sorry, did you want?
What are they being enticed with? Because they're leaving home, they're not telling their parents where they're going.
When I was active in OT, when I was all in that nonsense, it was more like it was a relationship thing. So not to say that one is greater than the other, wickedness is wickedness, but there was at least a genuine love for these young recruits that you're sending out there. You want them to be safe, you want them to be good. They're your little young boys, you're giving them money, you're paying them, you're doing something of them. But the heart of the man is exceedingly evil. Like every time you get a little, that's what I'm saying, the love of money is the root of all evil. Because first it started off with, you just want someone to do the work for you, but now you want to trick someone to do the work for you. So back in the day, you would actually you would pay them, you just give them a job. You'd be like, you don't want to work on that, you're working as I'll give you that £5 a week, blah 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 blah. So they'll get paid, they do it, they love it, got cash in hand, they got respect on their ends, they're doing it, they're desiring it. So some of these young men that are going missing, young women that are going missing, they're getting paid for it. But then I've also heard these tormenting stories of the Morley scandal, where you're talking about young school kids in Morley's, and they, chicken shop, they want food. So an older will go to the chicken shop and offer to pay for their food, and they will give them £10. And it will be like, he'll always buy their food for a week, 2 weeks, just buying them food. And then one day he'll ask that person, I always give you £1, I always give you a person. He'll ask this young child.
So
it's
grooming
about parents.
them.
Did you hear about this grooming process?
I haven't, no.
No, this is crazy. So there was a big report on it, basically saying don't take money from these guys from your chicken shop and that. It was mad. But at the end of the day, they'll give them something and say, hey, can you just give this to the person down the road? I'm nice. I've always been giving you food. So these young people would innocently go on to or other things, entice with other things, little things, like bro just said in the chat. And then they would send man to go give something down the road, and then they would basically set up a fake robbery. So the guy will get robbed, the kid will get robbed, and then but it's his friend, it's the oldest friend that even robbed him.
Yeah.
And then basically now he's saying, oh, you just lost my parcel that was worth £1,000. You owe me £1,000. Where's my grand? This little kid that couldn't even afford Morley's last week now owes someone £1,000 that he never even intended to even go into a debt. And then they'll say the only way you can pay it is go in county lines, and then the process continues. So some of these kids are actually like, they're enticed, man. They're groomed into it, and they're just doing it because they're in debt. So it's a cold game out there, man. I'll just say, if you've got younger brothers, little nephews, sisters, whatever, to just always be conversating with them, make sure they got pound in their pocket, and always just checking on them and seeing if they're as they're good, like who you talking to in school, like after school and all them things. It's just general communication.
That communication again.
Exactly, man. Exactly. Yeah.
Bro, guys, thank you for joining us so far. This is 21 Questions. It's still Shadey. We are at 57 minutes, but I haven't finished. So we're going to have a part 2. Can we do a part 2? So,
you're going to keep going into my past.
Yes, so no, we're going to come out of it. We're going to come into the light. Hallelujah.
We can have a part 2, man. It's cool.
But what we're going to do right now, I'm going to end this one, and then we're going to start a new one. So just join us, everybody. Join us, everybody. But guys, it's 21 Questions with Still Shadey. We are going to meet you on the other side. Love it, love it. All right, in a sec. So we're going to do part 2. Join us. I'm going to end this one, and then you're going to join us. Yeah, big up to everyone that is listening on repeat. We've been having an amazing part 1. We're going to do a part 2 because I want to ask them some more questions. All right, guys, join us in a second. Just come back on it.